Hello, fellow psychonauts, seers, and mystics. I'm your host, Chris Thompson, and welcome to another edition of Magus Maximus. Alright, so if you notice, I did this on the last one I did. I'm using a different program because I'm hoping this will sync the voice more, because this is the program that came with my computer. I was using a program that came with the drivers on. It actually works with the camera that I was in, but it always has this like sync. There's a problem in the sync. So where I'll be talking faster than the sound that's coming out. I don't know. Hopefully this will make a difference. Okay, so what I want to talk about this time is why I became a ceremonial magician. Okay, so we can go back to the point that I haven't always been interested in different religions and stuff. Like maybe a little bit. I mean, I was brought up Catholic, but my search started, I'd say, like a good almost 30 years ago, little less. That I've talked about it before. I tried to kill myself when I was in the Army, and I had a near-death experience, and really since then, ever since that, it was a quest to understand the experience that I went through, and I've tried to relate it to you on video, and it just like what I experienced, and then when the 2 seconds it takes to try to explain what I could explain, it seemed like really lame. But I had this crazy experience that didn't go with the worldview that I was brought up in. And trying to understand this, I had to study other things, which I did when I was younger. I had a girlfriend that was into witchcraft, and I ended up helping her to try to basically talk to the spirit of this guy, because it has his picture on his grave, and she had thought he was cool and wanted to know about them. And that ended up with me, who didn't really believe in it, doing things that I learned from a book, and basically not taking it serious, and basically playing a game with spirits that don't have the same idea of morality or whatever with them. And so that blew up in my face. But I was always interested in mysticism and magic, and my change became my first inklings of that was my beginning to start Kabbalah, because I found out about Kabbalah from Marilyn Manson's autobiography, because I was a big fan of his, and so that started me on the path of being a true mystic. And I had this I bought another one, a replica of the same ring, where it's a Star of David ring. The other one's somewhere in my closet. I might need to find it, because I'm sure this one's I'm exercising and I'm losing a lot of weight, so eventually I'm gonna need a smaller ring. But anyways, I started Kabbalah, and I started reading about all different religions and not only that, even my own religion, even with Christianity, I started studying. Became interested in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then later on the Nag Hammadi library, and just learning about that, and learning about Judaism, and learning about Hinduism, and learning about Buddhism, and learning about Islam, and those things eventually. So then why didn't I start practicing that stuff before 3 years ago? Okay, so and I may have gone over this on another video about similar things. So I was watching a show on Netflix that's called The Midnight Gospel, and it's basically this dude, I forget what his name is, who it's basically they took his popular podcast, and they did animation over it. And one of them, he was interviewing Damien Eccles. For some of you now, you guys, he's very popular in the occult circles, and he has several books. And he was my segue into ceremonial magic. So I listened to it. I remember watching that show. I was thinking, well, this guy really knows his shit. You know, he really knows what he's talking about. And then there was a part where it brought up about him being in prison, and then I'm like, well, because at this point I didn't know who the interviewer was. They didn't mention his name or anything. So then I'm like, well, I don't know if this guy's been in prison. I don't know if I should believe him. But then I found out that he's Damien Eccles, and I'm like, Damien Eccles, why does that sound familiar? And this is probably a lot of why he's popular and famous, was that there were some documentaries, I believe they were called the Paradise Lost documentaries, and where someone had followed them and filmed their whole proceedings. And it was this, him and his friends, one of them, the guy who they came and made sure they interrogated first, and then it still didn't match the killings, was the dumb guy. And so the whole thing was based on, okay, these 3 kids were killed in an area where they usually hung out with, and because they're weird and they listen to heavy metal, and Damien Eccles was interested in the occult, that they got some expert who just paid for a degree that he never took classes for, and they determined, well, you know, it was an occult killing, which, how would he know? And then it was like, well, we know one guy that's into the cult, and these guys are weirdos and they listen to Metallica instead of Garth Brooks, so let's go over there. So basically they railroaded these guys because they needed someone to take the fall, and the only person that was ever, I can't remember which one, was the stepfather of one of the kids. And there was another guy that they had first gone after, and he was a nice guy, and he was so upset that they thought he would do it. But this other kid's stepfather, he was the only person, the only suspect that was like an actual, like he was the original suspect, but no one ever went after him. And the reason Damien and his friends got out of prison was because they found DNA evidence, and none of the DNA evidence was theirs. There was a string, and the shoestring had caught a hair from the person who probably did it, because they used the shoestring, whoever did it used the shoestring to hog tie one of the kids up. And it was one of the stepfathers, and it matched them. But no one's going after the guy. No one's trying to find the real killer because they don't care. And so, anyways, so I'm like, oh, he was in prison because of something he didn't do. And so that I started looking him up on YouTube, and his YouTube stuff came up, because he'll put some of the stuff from his Patreon thing on YouTube. And so I started listening to him, and I started learning about it. I remember buying his first book, what was it called? High Magick. It was called High Magick, and the subtitle was like Rituals That Helped Me Survive Death Row. And so that began my thing, and then I started, not long after that, there was a crisis that my girlfriend had tried to kill herself, and while she was in the hospital, I put all my focus on magic and doing crafts. That was when I made my staff that I had, and so I poured myself into it, and it helped me survive, and it helped me thrive, and I'd never go back. I mean, I know I'm a long ways from perfecting myself, but I can't, like, I wouldn't go a day without it. There's been days that I got up and I did something else, and I didn't do my rituals till later on, and I just felt like horrible, like Like, it's the way I always used to feel. Like, I wouldn't say always, but ever since I've had bipolar and I've had this thing, and I don't want to feel that way again. I don't ever want to go back. I started doing these things as an experiment to see if they actually worked, and they work. They do the things because it's theurgy, which I couldn't remember in the last what it was called in the last thing, but it's improving me. It's doing things to make me the best me I can be, and I want to continue on that, and I want to help other people go down that road too. And sure, I'm not as advanced in expertise as Damien Nichols or some of these other people on here, but I'm going through, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a refreshing thing, because I may be more advanced than some of you, or I might be less advanced. But with me, we're going through this together. I haven't had 18 years or whatever, how many years Damien was in prison, that he just did it every day, all day, man. Like, I do not have that much experience in it, but I do have the experience in that I would assume that most people, even if they're doing ceremonial magic, and in a lot of it, people have busier lives than me. I have bipolar disorder, so I cannot handle any type of pressure. I can handle it better nowadays doing ceremonial magic and stuff, but still, I'm a mess. I'm a mess. It all had to do with, I mean, I could have, there's no saying. I mean, I might have ended up bipolar anyways, because because sometimes if something triggers it usually. The thing is usually in the genetics, and I do have genetic predisposition, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's in my genetics to have these things, but it was the stress of the military and being in a foreign country that treated us badly, us soldiers badly, that triggered it. So I became, and the bipolar stuff took over. So, I can't do things, so I have more time than most people do. So if I'm not putting you down if you don't do it every day, but I'm saying I may have been doing it for 3 years, but I've done this every day for 3 years. So I do have a little bit experience, but I'm still a beginner. I'm nowhere near being an adept. But I'm pushing myself more, and I'm trying, because some of you might be young and you have all your lives. I'm pushing 50. I'm 48 years old, and I just started this 3 years ago, so I have a long way to go, because according to Damien Nichols, if you don't do this work, if you don't complete the great work within one lifetime, and if you believe in reincarnation, then you reincarnate like everybody else does, instead of leaving the wheel of incarnation. Because the whole point of this work is to surpass the wheel of samsara. Samsara is the wheel of carnation, death and reincarnation, to where you can either no longer incarnate or reincarnate purposefully to maybe come back and guide people, be a bodhisattva or whatever. But I'm nowhere near that. Don't know if I ever will be. But it's about self-improvement and being yourself. And I'm not so much interested in I'm a little interested. I do like some of the what do they call it? Practical magic. But I'm not into witchcraft like stuff. I don't have this thing to go around gathering herbs or grow a garden full of herbs and do this and do that. It doesn't interest me. If it interests you, that's cool. I'm not trying to put it down. It's just not my thing. Well, for a lot of people, doing these complex rituals is not a fun thing. I enjoy doing that. I like it. And also for what I'm trying to achieve, something like that is not really gonna help with improving me spiritually. Now, it doesn't mean I'm not going to learn stuff that might not help my earthly life be more comfortable, because people who are more comfortable in their settings and have more things and aren't as stressed out, guess what? They learn better, they perform better, they do things better. So, anyways, so that is how I ended up becoming a ceremonial magician. And I know it's weird to some people, and you obviously, if you're watching me, you don't think it's weird. And truthfully, I mean, is it weirder than any other religion? I know some people don't say it's not a religion, but it's, just because it doesn't have the same things as other religions, like Buddhism doesn't have a god, but it's still considered say So anyways, spiritual, whatever. Anyways, is it any stranger than Christianity? Take Christianity and say there's somebody that, I don't know, they're from Mars or something, and they've never been exposed to earthly religions. And they see this religion about, especially Protestants who think Jesus is not only the Son of God, but God. So you got this man God who is his own father, talks to himself, walks on water, and rises from the dead. That's pretty weird too. The only difference is my weirdness has a process for spiritual attainment. We need to come up, even people who aren't into this and don't think it's cool, but you've got to be accepting of other people's spiritual traditions. Now, you don't have to accept people that are murdering people because of their spiritual traditions, and that's a problem we have with a lot of religions, especially the Abrahamic religions. If you really read the Old Testament, the shit that God did and told people to do, and yes, I know that's the God I have tattooed on my shoulder, but that was a wrathful, vengeful God. So is it strange that, what is strange is that the people who all believe in the same God are killing each other the most. And that's fucking bullshit. And it needs to stop. And you can't fucking use this thing that, bad things happen to us, so we get to steal people and murder the land. No, you don't. So, I know, I got into politics and shit, and I shouldn't. But anyways, okay. It's been great, guys. So this has been another episode of Magus Maximus. I'm your host, Chris Thompson. And be cool, and make sure you go there and hit the subscribe button and hit that little bell, because that bell will make sure they signify you. But I don't usually push the bell, and it still tells me when something comes up. But subscribe, push the little bell, tap the little bell thing, whatever, and I'll see you guys till then.